This is one of the most memorable scenes from Melina. Her short, curly waves frame luscious red lips, an hourglass figure wrapped in a stylish black dress. The slender curve of her calves accentuated by elegant heels. She strolls across the town square, then settles onto a sun-drenched bench, under the hungry gazes of countless men. When she pulls out a cigarette, they swarm like moths to a flame, each fighting to light it first, terrified of missing their chance. And so, one of cinema's most iconic moments was born. A small Sicilian town. The sunlight pours down without restraint, gilding everything in warm gold, including Melina, who glows like a goddess descended to earth. Radiant, untouchable. She was, without question, the most beautiful woman in town. Every time she walked the streets, men's eyes followed helplessly. Even Renato, not yet 13, was utterly captivated. Decades later, he would still remember it vividly. The day Mussolini declared war on Britain and France. The day he got his first bicycle. Too young to understand war, he pedaled through the streets without a care, or burned ants under a magnifying glass, unaware that some people, like those ants, would ride and perish in what should have been the world's brightest light. Melina was one of them. The story begins with a group of boys frantically parking their bicycles, just waiting for Melina to walk by, all for a chance to gaze upon her. This was Renato's first time seeing Melina. She wore simple clothes, her voluminous black curls cascading carelessly over her shoulders, swaying gently in the sunlight with each elegant step and breeze, as if she had stepped right out of a painting, exuding an irresistible allure that made the boys wait and follow, unable to look away. But it wasn't just the boys. The grown men of the town lusted after Melina even more, considering it an honor just to interact with her, and making no effort to hide it. When their wives found out, they never blamed their husbands, but instead unanimously directed their anger at Melina, wishing she would just disappear. Melina couldn't be bothered to explain herself. She simply lived her life, taking each elegant step, hoping to maintain her best self for her husband's eventual return. From that first encounter, Melina's image burned itself into Renato's mind like a brand, tossing and turning each night, his thoughts filled with nothing but her. So like the other men, he began searching the town for glimpses of Melina, eventually even skipping school to wait outside her home, just for another look at her beauty. A few words would have been paradise, what he thought was just hopeless longing, until one day, Melina called him over while wearing a lazy lace negligee. The boy's heart nearly burst with excitement, though he soon learned she just wanted him to buy cigarettes. Even this brief closeness was enough to satisfy him. When coins fell to the ground, Renato scrambled to pick them up, only to fluster when a breeze lifted the edge of her nightgown. The tantalizing glimpse left his head spinning, but before anything could happen with his goddess, he realized it had all just been his fantasy. And so, he began sneaking out every night to spy on Melina. He never caught the sensual scenes he hoped for. Instead, he discovered the depth of her devotion to her husband. Sometimes, when the longing became unbearable, she would clutch his photograph and sway gently to silent music. Renato burned with jealousy, desperate to enter Melina's world. He bought the same record she owned, and played it nightly, losing himself in fantasies of their private dance. He ached to approach her but couldn't muster the courage, so instead he listened to the waves, secretly documenting every detail about her, including the town's cruel whispers. Soon he took refuge in the cinema, imagining himself and Melina as the leads, in a dazzling, romantic story. Little did he know, her real life would soon unravel into something far darker than fiction. When news arrived that Melina's husband had died in battle, grief shattered her. Lost and vulnerable, she had no one to turn to. Renato yearned to console her, but fear paralyzed him. So in the shadows, he fantasized about pressing a tender kiss to her skin, a kiss that would make her his forever. At the funeral, Melina stood tall, enduring the town's hollow condolences, but their eyes betrayed hunger, not sympathy. Renato hated them, yet his revenge was petty. Shattered windows, nothing more. For Melina, it wasn't nearly enough. But the boy, deluded into thinking himself her protector, grew bolder. One night, he stole an intimate garment of hers, letting her scent haunt his sheets. When his father discovered the shameful act by morning, Renato felt no remorse. After all, Every other man in town did worse, why shouldn't he? If anything, it only made him want her more. Without her husband, Melina's life grew increasingly desperate. Men coveted her beauty without shame. Married men brawled in the streets over her at night. Their wives, after screaming at their husbands, still blamed Melina. Too beautiful, too wanton. Never the victim, always the temptation. Even her own father disowned her. She tried to fight back, sued the men who slandered her, only to have her lawyer demand her body as payment. For a moment, she considered it. Marrying him might mean survival. But his family refused to accept that whore, and cowardice made him walk away. So Melina endured the groping hands, the spit on her doorstep, the hunger gnawing at her ribs. Paradox of the desired outcast. Every man wanted her, yet none would hire her. In the end, she traded the last of her dignity for scraps of food. Renato watched it all, powerless, too cowardly to speak, let alone act. Then the war bombs fell. Her father died in the rubble. At the funeral, men lined up to comfort her, their hands slipping under black mourning silk, their whispers anything but condolence. That night, she stood before a mirror, scissors in hand. The dark cascade of her hair fell to the floor. If the world insists I'm a whore, I'll be the most defiant one they've ever seen. Where she once walked with lowered eyes, now she strode into sunlight, chin raised. Grief had carved her beauty into something fiercer. When she lit a cigarette in the square, a dozen lighters flickered to life. The fall and the unseen return. In a desperate bid for survival, she began courting the Nazi officers, a sight that horrified young Renato, who realized he'd lost her forever. But fate is cruel. Just as her circumstances seemed to improve, Germany fell. The women of the town stormed the cafe, dragged Melina into the square by her hair, and unleashed years of pent-up hatred. As each lock of her beautiful hair fell to the ground, so too did the last remnant of her hope. Her body shook violently before she unleashed a soul-rending wail, the sound of a spirit breaking. Perhaps only Renato, watching silently, still carried a shred of compassion for her. But his pity meant nothing. He couldn't offer even the slightest protection. Stumbling through the crowd, she wrapped herself in black cloth and fled the town that had never shown her kindness, a hollow shell of the woman she once was. The sun still shone brightly that day, but the light in Renato's eyes dimmed as she disappeared. With time, he might forget the complexities of his youthful passion, but the guilt buried in his heart would only fester. No one could have imagined that Melina's husband wasn't dead after all. The war hero who had bled for his country was left forgotten on the battlefield. He begged his way home, only to find his house stolen, and his beloved wife branded the town whore. When he demanded answers, no one would acknowledge his sacrifice. To call him a hero would mean admitting their own monstrous acts, so they erased Melina from their conversations. A silent conspiracy of shame. And Renato? The old guilt surged anew, bitter as bile in his throat.